your hands on top of your head.
Well, I didn't.
Now!
Here comes the jam. Getting down with the truth. The only way he knows how to. Girls all up with his name. We're calling the chief. You're damn right. He's gonna get that sucker. Yo, we track down the truth. You know what a track down the truth. You know and what do they call him? We call him the chief. You're damn right we do.
I'll bet your mother had a loud bark.
Good morning. Welcome back to Morning Coffee with the Chief. I'm your host, Patrick Jordan, here on Pop Culture Minefield. You can find us on YouTube and Rumble on the Pop Culture platform. You can also find me on X at LASD Jordan. And I have to tell you, I have another YouTube show. It's called Briefing with the Chief. I did an analysis to date of the Carmelo Anthony case. It's a very popular video that I put out a couple days ago. So if you want to get analysis of what is self-defense in Texas, what were the witnesses saying, and I can tell you pretty damning towards Carmelo Anthony, who they rested their case yesterday. He did not take the stand and to claim his self-defense case. So it's pretty not looking good for Mr. Carmelo Anthony. So, but check it out. I get a lot of comments on that one. Anytime I do something like that, I get comments on X, racial comments or comments about cops and all other stuff. But check it out. I've gotten a lot of positive comments too that it was good analysis. So, anyways, I also want to talk about before we get in the show, the LA mission. So it's just down there in LA mission. Now it's interesting. Right now we have an election in LA, and they're saying that the person who just overtook Spencer Pratt, a lot of her votes came from downtown LA among the homeless. So it'll be interesting. The feds are investigating. I'd like to see what happens. But the Los Angeles mission is down in Skid Row, and they do a fantastic job. They do wraparound programs to reintegrate the homeless back in society. They just don't keep them in place and let them suffer as addicts. Their goal of their organization is recovery, actual recovery, and reintegrate them back in society, which should be the model that we should be using throughout the country, certainly in all of LA County, and that is not the case. But that is the model they use. That's why I support them. Make a donation today and help somebody who's ready and willing to do the work to get off the streets. Okay, hey, so we're gonna do the movie Crime 101, and there's before we get into the movie and when it was released and all this stuff, let me bring our guest on. It's Scott Orr. He's been here before. He's off in the volunteer state. He's escaped from California, escaped from the madness. And hey, Scott, how you doing?
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good.
We can count our votes here in Tennessee. We don't have to.
Oh, you count your votes, yeah.
Well,
you know what I mean. When they started the new math in California, it makes it pretty hard to count those votes, and it's really.
My God.
I'm going to probably do a show on it on my other show, but Trump is pushing back. He passed an executive order. He signed an executive order in which, if you're going to use the mail, the post office, you have to provide a certified and valid list of voters. Otherwise, they won't let the mail come or go. They won't mail it out and they won't mail it back unless they're on that certified list, which should cut out a big chunk of the corruption, right? And California, it's we create a system that's easy to corrupt because it benefits the Democrats. And that's all there. If it didn't benefit the Democrats, they'd fix it because they control the state, right?
They'd be screaming, from the top of their lungs about illegal voting and all these. How all of a sudden do you get thousands of votes dumped? I don't understand that.
If Florida was doing this, Gavin Newsom would be screaming, and but they're not. Of course, they all pass voter integrity rules, which is, so it's interesting. We'll see how that plays out. I know that the U.S. attorney is investigating, and so it's just despicable what has happened with this Spencer Pratt here. But in this movie, Crime 101, hey, let's bring Martine up. Martine, he's going to jump in the back seat and help us review this case. Just to clarify, Martine, normally you have the driver and the bookman. Those are the two people in a police car. Then you got somebody in the back seat.
Oh.
Oh.
And he's usually not hands-free.
So, hey, welcome aboard, Martine. Sometimes deputies go back there, too. So.
Yes, especially during riots.
Yes, during riots, which they might have in Texas, or we'll see. I don't know. All right. Hey, so the movie Crime 101 was released in 2026. It's a crime thriller starring Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, and Halle Berry, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but also has Nick Nolte in it. So just kind of which I certainly enjoyed. And seeing him, I always like Nick Nolte, but a lot of really good cast. What'd you think of the movie, Scott?
It was okay. I mean, a lot of cliches.
Yeah,
a lot of cliches from different movies, and it was good. I mean, it was entertaining. Very far-fetched, but it was entertaining.
yeah, it is far-fetched. That's what I was
entertaining.
Thinking.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. They said took after Heat a little bit, which you can see it in there. I mean, the plot, high-end thief, and hey, hello, James Jameson. Hello. Hopefully, you're having a couple of fingers there this morning. Because the Nick Nolte character was akin to I forget the name of who was the Vince in Heat. I'm seeing him. He's the conservative actor, older conservative. I think he's Angelina Jolie's father. I think that's who it was.
John Boyd.
Oh,
John Boyd. Yeah, I think he was the Vince in that movie, and so similar to that. But one of the things what do you think of the movie, Martine?
What again?
What'd you think of the movie? Did you like it? Was it?
Yeah. It's a little far-fetched, except for the end. Happy endings for the good thief. There's nah, I don't know about that, but okay.
They do have we do have high-end thieves who steal art and jewelry, but a lot of the jewelry thieves are the distraction kind of thieves, right? Well, you have really two kinds. You'll have the distraction thieves and then the tunnelers, the guys who will tunnel into jewelry shops. Well, now you have the smash and grab, so really there's three. But this thing where they're Helmsworth's thing where they're the robbery kind of stuff, that not so much anymore. It's why do you want to confront? Hey, Midnight Cowboy, yeah, that's a great movie. Why John Boyd, and Nick Nolte is a great actor. Thanks to James. But why would you want to confront them if you can just tunnel into their place or do a smash and grab and get in and out, right?
Right.
Yeah, where 20 guys go in and you just overwhelm it, which is what's going on now. I don't know. So I do think, but there are. I was checking it out. Not that the thing about regular law enforcement. I was thinking about this when I saw Ruffalo's character, the investigator, is, we tend to focus on violent crime as the priority, which is why Helmsworth's goal of not actually ever hurting anybody, even though he's pointed a gun at him, his goal is to not be violent, so that they'll focus their attention on somebody else, right, Scott? So when somebody's getting hurt, people are getting killed, that's the pressure comes to deal with those crimes first versus these non-violent or crimes in which people aren't hurt, right?
Yeah, I mean, some rich guy getting robbed of $5 million worth of diamonds is not as newsworthy as somebody lying in the street bleeding.
Yeah,
which people don't know, where a lot of these shootings on the street, there's not all this blood involved. I remember my son's first time he went to a shooting, a murder, And he's like, "Hey, there wasn't a lot of blood." I said, "No, where you probably shot in the chest, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." I go, "Yeah, because if it doesn't go out, then they bleed internally, and there's not a lot of blood."
Right.
There's, but if some rich guy gets ripped off of diamonds, everybody just goes, he's got insurance, they'll cover it.
Exactly. That's the other thing I was going to say
Same with
there.
auto burgs and auto theft. It's like you go to court and a guy's been arrested 10 times for auto theft, and it's like, okay, 60 days, county jail. And you're like, what?
Yep.
Well, because the insurance bought him a new car. So it's really, as they say, a victimless crime, but it's not because
Yep. Because it
insurance
impacts
company
insurance
has,
rates. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we all
It's
get screwed by it.
it's the poor people who have basic coverage, don't have theft, right? And or
Hmm.
grandma who gets her $1,000, the last $1,000 she had, stuffed away, stolen out of her house that are more impactful or that we want to address that we're compelled to address because we have to because it's desperation for them. You're right. The rich people, it's not desperation for them. Although they can put pressure on law enforcement to do something. But Ruffalo's character was interesting because LAPD, I know they had a division that worked on art theft, which is high end art theft, right? And
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And they were specialized, and but when push comes to shove, that's one of the first units shut down to go after the more violent crime and the street crime. That's the reality, and and I don't think that priority is bad. I think that's the right priority. I don't know, Martine. What do you think? You think a billionaire losing $5 million worth of gems is more important than grandma losing her last $1,000?
Yeah, that's a tough one because yeah, Granny is in more of a dire situation,
Yep.
but crime is crime.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, crime
Both
is. Yeah.
both should be addressed, and but yeah,
I don't think we're
go and
saying that.
help. What? Go
I'm
help
not
Granny
saying that
first.
the cops don't, you know, I'm not trying to say the cops don't care because you wouldn't be a cop if you didn't care. It's just that media wise and public wise, the public's kind of like, yeah, millionaire lost five or billionaire lost $5 million, boo hoo. But to the rest of us, that $5 million is like, to him, it's like 500 bucks because he's a billionaire. To us, it's like
Yeah.
5,000 bucks.
Yeah, I'm kind
Uh,
of simplifying it, but if they hit Granny's house for $1,000, they're going to hit the other ladies on the house for 500. They're going to, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell them, hey, let's get rid of this. Let's deal with the neighborhood crime and the street crime. Going after the specialist who's targeting the high end stuff is, yeah, we want to do that, but community disorder is more important
yeah, it's more
than
important,
hiring.
but you cannot give
Okay,
you
here's the
cannot
deal,
turn your
Martine.
back
I'm
on
going to
the other.
force you. I'm going to force you to think like a police executive here. You only have one detective. Where do you send them?
Okay, that's I understand there are priorities. What I'm saying is you cannot turn your back on the other case
No, no.
because we get to this. And James, I'm sorry, I cannot abide by that because the that kind of thinking creates lack of trust in the system.
Well, and let's
And
be
what
clear though. If there's really good, really, because when you look at a case, there's things called workable. Think whether something's workable or not, right? And if you got workable leads, you're going to work the case. But if you don't have any workable leads, um, yeah,
that
you'll work
yeah,
it, but
that-
it's there's not really that much to go on, and so I don't know. I just kind of there is you have to make value judgments every day when you're focusing resources, limited resources, hell, even more limited nowadays since they cut all the cops. Where do you focus your attention? I mean, I know if I'm the chief and some billionaire came in and they stole 5 million of my gems. I said, did you support
yes,
Karen Bass for mayor? Well, yeah.
of,
Okay.
I
I
can
mean,
understand.
I'm down 1,500 cops. What do you want me to do? Carve out a 5 to go investigate your case when I got disorder on the streets? Come on, you know.
Wait,
So
wait, two things here. Yeah, $5 million for a guy who has money. That
Yeah,
that wasn't stolen to get a new Ferrari. That wasn't stolen to finance more crime
yeah,
and as illegal weapons or drugs. So keep that in mind. Second, it's not. I'm not saying that forget that. No, I'd say I was pretty clear. I focus on Granny first, and then the other one.
okay,
You cannot have a two-tier
yeah. No,
law
no, no. That's
system.
yeah. That's fair enough, Martine. That's
I
fair.
don't. I,
We're
I
not going to turn our back on the billionaire's loss, but
I mean,
we are going to deal with the immediate stuff that is
if
more
if
more
if
likely
law
to be
is not
violent.
applied equally to everybody, that's a problem.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah, I
I,
don't care if I like or despise the people who should be
well,
protected by the law. All must be everybody must be protected by the law.
working gangs, you go out to a murder or attempted murder,
Well, those
and then the next week, the guy that was your suspect's now a victim. That never made me go, well, you were a shooter last week. You're my suspect in last week's shooting, and now all of a sudden you're a victim. It didn't change my. A victim was a victim to me, but I like the billionaire thing. I don't know where this hate. I mean, the media has done it, and
yeah,
certain political parties made billionaires out to be these bad guys. Of course, most of the billionaires are all Democrat, but
these days, yeah,
just because he has $1 billion doesn't mean he didn't earn. I mean, didn't earn that money somehow. It's not like
the
he
other
just somebody gave him $1 billion. They had to invent something. They had to sell something. They had
and,
to
and
turn them. So they had to work their asses off.
yeah.
the other
So
thing
it's
is
not
that that $1 billion is not a billion in cash
Oh
right,
yeah,
anymore.
yeah,
right,
yeah, 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 yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah.
That is infrastructure mainly.
But it does.
Right. It's
Infrastructure
all
that
on
other
paper. It's
people
all on.
use to get a job.
It's
Yeah, I
So
I will
what
say
what
being a
what's
billionaire makes you a target. That's for sure.
yep.
That's for sure. Being a billionaire these days makes you a target for all kinds of nonsense. But there are billionaires that are kind of jerks too. Yeah, billionaires have secured teams. Granny had none. The question was, with limited resources, who do you visit first? Yeah,
yes, and we established visit Granny
I'm
first,
going.
and
I'm
then
going to
the
grandma's
other
house
one.
first.
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
that was pretty clear. My alarm started to sound uh, with billionaires are fair game. What the freak?
Oh no, nobody ever said that. That's just the
No, they're not.
reality. Yeah. I will say, I've heard some stories about how billionaires are brutal with they'll hire like this guy Eli Broad. Or well, I guess I shouldn't say his name. There's a billionaire in L.A. that would hire people and then would sue them for not delivering properly, and so he didn't have to pay them. So there's some really not good billionaires out there, but so and that's how they keep their wealth, right? I wouldn't say that's
No, no, no.
everybody, but I mean, I don't see that with Elon, and who is the richest guy in the world. He seems to be fairly generous, and but I just when you're dealing with street crime that tends to be more violent, that tends to pull resources away from crimes like the one in this movie. We kind of roll the movie here and when we're talking here, but the other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about this movie as because it comes out in the plot, and I think it's important. This is we do talk about dynamics that go on in society that are portrayed in the movies, and this is that our main character, our crew, Chris Hemsworth. Let me get his character name here because I can't remember. Mike or James Davis, the jewel thief. Mike is James Davis, so he's got a couple of. Anyways, Chris Helmsworth's character is. We find out that he was in foster care and he was recruited out of foster care into crime, and that is not an unusual pattern. To say he's recruited to be a high end jewel thief is probably not usual, but exploitation. Exploiting girls to be prostitutes, getting young men into gangs, that kind of thing, into the criminal life, dealing drugs. That stuff's not unusual. In fact, 30% who come out of foster care end up in the criminal justice system in jails or prisons. out of the foster. So that theme is actually pretty correct, right? What do you think, Scott? That's been your experience?
Yeah, most people like where I work, foster care is more of a money making deal than,
Yeah.
because they get a lot of money from the county to house these kids, and they're supposed to be foster parents and treat them, be a parent, but they don't.
Right.
There's a foster home in Marina Del Rey up in Ladera Heights, nice, beautiful neighborhood. Well, they're basically a foster home with like 8 kids in it, and they're all ran away all the time, went down the hill, and were hanging out with all the thugs from Crenshaw District. So, and we have to file a report because they're missing. Well, who's in charge? If you're these kids aren't tied down, they're walking out of the house,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know where they're going, but now you're just so finally we were able to get the department to buy off that we would just basically hand them a business card and say, yeah, we came out, and then sure enough, 2 or 3 days later, when they got hungry and got tired of the streets, they'd wander back into the house, and it was all about. I think they got 2,500 a month per kid. Times that by 8.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a money making venture for some. Others are want to be a real parent.
Well, so you're just reinforcing what the movie is saying, that it does happen, and that part of it is actually pretty realistic. It's just them going on to be high end thieves. I don't know about that. Right. So,
Yeah.
and the other thing is as they make Chris Hemsworth character to be very well, that you're sympathetic to him. Oh, he's a criminal, but he doesn't hurt anybody. Yeah, you know what? When you start pointing guns at people, that may not be and you don't shoot them. That may not be any physical wounds there, but there's definitely mental wounds that are going on, right? And people,
Still an assault with a deadly weapon.
yeah, the people are traumatized. I know that they characterize that the people that are getting robbed are security folks or people that do this all the time. But you do 1,000 transportations and nothing happens, then one happens, and you remember that one for the rest of your life. You get post-traumatic stress. So they play this game that, well, he's nonviolent, but pointing a gun at somebody and threatening them is violence, right? That's
Yeah.
So was it force or fear? And you're creating fear with that gun, and certainly it was a real gun. But we see as he does his first robbery, that's his reputation, but that something goes wrong, like and he gets shot at, right? That's what happens, and he finally leaves some evidence behind that we find out. He leaves a little blood behind, but I did want to talk about this character where somebody gets pulled out of the story where there's an old Oliver Twist. It's called Fagin. The Fagin was the guy who was played the offense, and he would recruit street kids to steal, and then he would fence the stuff. So this is way back, written by Charles Dickens. So this is not an unusual theme. I don't know what you think of that, Martin. That having a crook recruiting children to do their crimes, the thefts, and then selling it. We certainly I saw it in West Hollywood. We had a particular burger stand that was a fence for all the urchins that were on the streets, male prostitutes and burglars. And that's where they took their stolen jewelry and stuff like that. So this is not an unusual thing. It's the only thing unusual about this story is it's a high-end jewel thief. But having a Fagin type character is typical. What do you think, Martine? Did you see that in Venezuela or Mexico? That kind of cultural dynamic?
I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. So you don't have crooks that maybe lived in the area that recruited kids to do crimes.
I wouldn't know.
Okay.
I have known one or two open and out and about criminals. Wasn't a pleasant situation, let me tell you.
Okay.
And you never know whoever else you meet casually can be a day-to-day criminal. You don't know.
Yeah.
But I have never known of that kind of things except in Brazil.
Ah,
Yeah, in Venezuela we had independent criminals and gang, and of course organized white collar.
hmm,
But this of recruiting kids for and having a hub to distribute the gains of the fruit of their labors. No,
yeah.
I maybe,
Well,
but I was never aware of that.
yeah. We're talking about theft, but in reality, we see it where kids are recruited to deal sling dope, and kids are recruited into gangs. And so we do have these, like even in gangs, you have the older generations that will recruit the younger generations, and the kids will do the dirty work. It's the trouble with crime is you can trust nobody. Yeah, that's as Scott has said on many shows, the best information comes from the crime partners and gangs, right? They flip. So,
They flip all the time.
but it's so recruiting kids out of foster care or recruiting kids that are in desperate or difficult situations at home, or even kids that are just looking for a connection that have, I just was commenting on the Camilla Anthony case where he stabbed that kid at a track meet, but everything that appears to be out about Carmelo Anthony is he had two parents. He lived in a fairly well off neighborhood, had a nice house, and was I think a 3.5 GPA and was into sports. So why did he do what he did? Who knows, right? But kids are vulnerable to manipulative people, and that's kind of how I see the Chris Helmsworth and Nick Nolte relationship in this movie. I don't know. Do you see it that way, Scott?
Yeah, I think I don't. I think he was like you said, he was in foster care. He got recruited out of foster care, so now he's kind of like his mentor and foster dad, and he's the one supplying him with all the jobs and information. So it was kind of to me like a mentor type situation where he's really all Nick no not, he's all Chris Helmsworth. All he knows is Nick Nolte is.
Yeah.
They've had a long relationship apparently to their conversation, but
Well,
yeah,
it's
it's
it.
easier to recruit. I mean, gangs do it, dope dealers do it, and in L.A. County, traditionally, juvenile law has been quite lax on penalties for juveniles because they're just kids. And I remember Pasadena used to call them. They wouldn't call them gang members; they called them misguided youth.
Mm, yeah.
So we're at a meeting. We were at a meeting and we are talking about the gangs in Altadena and Pasadena, and the Pasadena city manager and the chief of police were like, "We don't have gangs, we just have misguided youth." So this guy from the state that was basically a grant for gang crime said, "Well, then if you just have misguided youth, you don't need any of the grant money." Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute.
Oh, that's funny. The thing, well, as we just said, James, they just commented, this happens in the UK. Yeah, well, the Charles Dickens story of the old Fagin story. Guess what? That's so it should be something that's where he saw that dynamic, right? So yeah, it's not unusual. It's in the UK. I think the other thing is we got to talk about Mark Ruffalo. Now, his portrayal of this detective is kind of Columbo-esque, I think. He's seen as this brilliant guy. He's got the rumpled clothes, which I can't think of a time I ever saw a detective looking like that. I'm sorry. I don't, and with the beard, that's the other thing that drives me about this movie. These guys are playing LAP guys, and they got these scruffy beards as detectives, working some, I guess it would be their major Berg teams, right? Or their major. It would be, and it wouldn't be. They'd had this would go to robbery homicide, right, Scott? So these guys. So there's
That
a
high level of money would go to robbery homicide.
and
And I've worked with them numerous times.
But they
And
don't come to work
those
looking like they
guys are
just rolled
spit
out
and
of bed.
polish.
I
They
know.
look like they're off. They look like what you would think a hardcore, squared away detective would look at. I was going to ask you. I worked 31 years. I never saw a detective on the sheriff's department nor LAPD, and I worked with quite a few from different stations. Never looked like Mark
I
Ruffalo.
know. It's like, God, can you tell him to shave at least? And it was driving me nuts. Although I don't like his politics, I did like his character in the movie. Although it's far fetched at the end when he does what he does. Now I have to talk about this particular scene. This is filmed not far from my house here. This is the Calabasas Commons. I go, hey, I was watching the movie. Said to my wife, hey, that's the Commons, right there. And so, and it was interesting. One of the other things I liked about this movie is it's Crime 101, which it has two meanings, right? It's the one meaning is, hey, Ruffalo is brought into crime and taught how to do crime, so it's lessons on how to do crime, right? Crime 101, like you'd see in a college thing, the title. But the other part of this title is Crime 101. It's the crimes that are committed along the 101 freeway, which comes out later. So this place is not that far off the 101 freeway. So that was kind of interesting. And if so, that means they filmed in L.A. Oh my God! And they released it in 2026. So they must have benefited from Mayor Bass's tax thing, so that they do some filming in LA. Yeah, it's crazy that they're all leaving LA to do filming elsewhere because it's cheaper, and they're screaming about how they got to do something to bring it back. Well, it's how about you reduce regulations, reduce the cost of fuel? I mean, why do you think they're leaving? They're leaving because of you. And then they give them a tax break to come back. And it was interesting because one of the candidates, well, a tax break to come back, but they have to follow all these rules. They have to hire based on DEI. They have to do this. They have to do that. They have to have this many people on the set who are this and this many. And so you get the tax rates, but they still have this, socialist bent to give in the tax break. And so, I mean, if you're doing production, I don't know, Martine, if you're doing production and you got all these rules to do productions in LA versus doing it in, say, Georgia and Atlanta, or going to, I don't know, pick another big, how about Denver or some other place? Why would you film in LA if you have all of these barriers and rules, right? Just from local government or state government. Right, because you do the movie stuff, right? Production is leaving California because of this nonsense. Why? What's their investment in staying in LA? I don't know if you are up on that to speak on that, but I'm throwing you that question.
Well, I don't know. I don't see any logical financial reason unless you're getting. No, I'm gonna stop there.
You're going to stop there? Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
because of everything that I'd say are just allegations.
Okay, all right. We won't put you on the spot then. But I do like Ruffalo's character. I don't like his politics. Here's Nick Nolte here. He's looking old, man. I tell you. And did you hear
Oh
him the way
man,
he
he's
spoke? Man, it's like,
shaking.
is that his real voice, or is he? Because
Yeah,
he sounded terrible too.
yeah, yeah. He
Yeah,
sounds very
he's
fragile, and his hands
yeah.
are shaking terribly.
Yeah,
I'm worried.
Oh,
yeah.
he's probably what, in his 80s?
Let me check. Let me
Yeah,
check.
he's not fried chicken. I can tell
Yeah.
you that.
But as much drugs and drinking that he's done in his life, maybe he looks pretty good.
85. Yeah,
85 years old.
85
All the
years old.
drugs and drinking and just being a crazy man. For 85, he doesn't look that bad. Of course, there's a lot of makeup probably involved, but
Yeah. I did like, he's a great actor, and I liked a lot of his stuff. I mean, but the one I think I remember the most about him was the miniseries Rich Man Poor Man. I don't know if you ever watched that miniseries. I really liked his character there, where he played kind of the down and out brother who was the boxer. I thought he was really great in that series, and he was the most impactful. I mean, Peter Strauss was in that movie, or that miniseries too, but his character was the one that stuck with me the most. Hollywood started because of East Coast taxation. Yeah, you're probably right. They left. Yeah, that's right. And Hollywood will probably stay in California just because well, here's the thing. So my son has moved on to building houses and all that other stuff, right? But he built sound stages for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, and the company he built for Coyote Studios got bought out. He got his equity stake, and then he went on to another company where he's running a construction company now. But um, none of those sound stations are empty now. So they built the sound stations because there was an explosion in production after COVID, and then they're not being used, right? So Warrior, I have to look up Warrior on Nick Nolte. I think the other one I liked him. It was at North Dallas 40 where he played the football player. I like that one, right?
That was a good movie. Yeah.
That was a good movie, right? And a good cast. Getting the shots to stay in the game, was that part of it when you were playing? Yeah, getting the.
Oh hell yeah! You didn't want to be known as a training room warrior, right?
What's the training room warrior? What's that?
That's somebody who's always spends majority of before, during, and after practice in the training room getting something. I got a boo-boo on my elbow, or I got you're always with the training staff. I mean, it's different when you have a noticeable injury, right? When you blow out an ankle and your whole foot's purple or something. Yeah, you're going to be in the training room because you can hardly walk. But there's guys that, every little bump and bruise was in there getting ice on the elbow or somewhere on their body. So, if you had to play, if you sat out 1 week, you probably might not get to play the next week.
Right.
So you tried to stay, same with the pros, you tried to stay in it. So if you had to take a little injection for your sore knee, which you would take that little injection.
Yeah, that's what I remember. And and then he played, and I liked him in that one, but he was in so many good movies, right? So I didn't realize he was 85. I'm glad you meant that, but still, he sounded terrible.
Yeah, he did.
He sounded terrible. I think the other the guy in the motorcycle. So in the movie, Hemsworth does one of the crimes, and here he is right here. He's seated here. The other bad guy's name is Barry Keoghan, I think and he probably another foster kid, right? They don't really go into too depth on his background, but it's implied that they did it with Hemsworth. They're doing it with him, right? And Hemsworth's character decides that a heist that money. That's Nick Nolte's name.
I think this other kid is a legacy because they say that his father had worked for Nolte's character.
Ah, okay. And so he recruits. So wait a minute, Hemsworth doesn't want to do the next robbery. He looks at it and he goes, it's too dangerous. Don't want to do it, right? And he backs off. And Nolte tries to shame him into it, but he refuses. He's gonna, because after the latest one where he gets shot at, that might be a good reason to lay low for a while, I think. But hey, if you're not the person taking the risk, right? What do you care?
To call the shots.
Yeah, it's easier to call the shots, right? If you're not the one taking the risk. And the funny thing is I would think if you're somebody that's been in the life for a while, so as they apply with money, that just back off for a while. Things cool off. That's what I would think. But no, he's implies greed, right? No, well, I don't want to wait. So he tries to recruit this other guy on the motorcycle, and I thought the whole motorcycle. I thought that whole thing was, how he finally pulled off the robbery. Pretty violent. A lot of shooting, and that's just going to get your attention. And it did. So as soon as suddenly all those resources are looking for this guy with the motorcycle.
Right. And if you're Nick Nolte, why would you use this guy?
Exactly. That's what unreal.
What do you think's going to happen? He's going to get arrested, and he's going to go, I'm looking at 30 years.
Yeah.
I'll be eligible for parole in 20. Yeah. I'll give you the guy whose defense that puts us up to it.
Yeah.
If you knock it down to 10.
And the other guy, the guy that was doing the jobs before he got me.
Right.
I'll give you leads on him too. Yeah. And he's kind of a wingnut, right? You see this with gangs where they pull stupid people into the gang because of allegiance, and then they're stupid, right? They do dumb things. They overreact, and they gotta prove who they are, and so they're willing to be violent to do it. You know what? The basketball movie was great, where he played, was it Indiana? He played the coach in Indiana, Barry Knight. or Knight. I forget I know this last name's Knight, but yeah, he was good at that
I
one
think
too.
he's talking about the one with Shaq, right?
No, didn't he? He played a basketball coach, and
I
I think it
thought
was.
Gene Hackman played
Oh yeah, maybe that's right. Maybe it's
a version of Bobby Knight, but
yeah, Bobby Knight. That's it. Risk versus reward. Yeah, that's true. Risk versus reward. Uh, but you see, but he recruits him to do this, and here he is with his helmet and Cape. Oh my God, yeah, he was. But De Niro was way better. De Niro was really good in the Cape Fear remake. I liked the original Cape Fear with. Oh my God, I'm looking at him right now, and it was. Who's the old time actor that was? He was arrested for marijuana. He was in the jail. He was in L.A. County jail system. Robert. I can't think of his name, but he played in the original Cape
Robert
Fear.
Mitchum.
Robert
Yeah,
Mitchum.
Robert
That's it.
Mitchum.
Yeah,
that was a good movie.
He played in the original Cape Fear, and guy To Kill a Mockingbird. I can't believe it. I think I'm getting old here.
Gregory Peck.
Gregory Peck. That's it. He played Nolte's character in the original, and they both starred in. They both did cameos in the remake with De Niro and Nolte. But yeah, that was a good movie too. Cape Fear. Hey, thanks for bringing it up. That's I have to agree. So, but here's the other side of this one, Scott, is Richam. Yeah, Mitchum I liked him too. He's a good actor. But I like all those old golden era actors. I mean, God, I can't think of him now, but Randolph Scott, I liked him. I liked
Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stewart.
Henry Fonda.
Henry Fonda. But who's the one in Bullet? Steve McQueen. I like even Gene Hackman. He was part of that era, kind of the tail end of that era. But Robert Duvall was part of that era. I mean, there's a lot of really, really good actors in the golden age of Hollywood, which some of those guys were on the tail end of. But the other part of this is it's kind of Haley Berry's character. So she's selling insurance to high end people, right? She's very beautiful still, even at her whatever she's portrayed here. I think she was portrayed at 50, and she was actually a little older or something like that.
53, yeah.
But she's still a beautiful lady. How more acting's. He played the whole Columbo kind of look, a geek, and yeah, it could have been a little more Columbo-esque. It probably would have been a little more entertaining, right? But they always seem to do this with some detectives in movies. Somebody who's down and out, misunderstood, smarter than everybody else, and he's treated poorly. Here's the thing about guys who get it that high, and they ain't getting into robbery, homicide. They ain't getting to some of these high-end detective units if they're like that. It just ain't happening. Of course, he's getting pressured to leave the unit by his lieutenant. But the guys that have had these kinds of issues going on, they get sidelined. Here, you're doing missing person cases, right? I mean, they get sidelined.
Exactly.
Then I'll wait for them to figure out. Yeah, Barry's a stunner, but the part of this I wanted to get on her, and this is the insurance agent, and that she's later on she gets co-opted to participate in a crime, right? But we did talk about, hey, it's just the insurance is the victim, but she's the other part of her story here is the age discrimination thing. I have to tell you, sure, they portray this as a woman thing, but this happens across the board, right? Guys and gals these days is wisdom of older people is just discarded, right? She was the eye candy that brought in policies, but this happens. They marginalize the guys too once they get older.
Oh.
It happens all the time. It happens across. They say this is a woman thing, and I'm okay with that. It does happen. They bring in the gal with the eye candy, and she gets older, and then she gets less useful, right? That does happen. I believe that. I think that's appropriate. I don't think that's a fact in this case. She's still a very good-looking lady, even at that age, right? But I liked her character. You can, she did a pretty good job on this. What'd you think, Martine? Age discrimination happens at both men and women, and Halle Berry's still a good-looking lady in this film, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it happens. We get discriminated. Oh yeah, she's good-looking.
All the
Both.
above. All the above.
Yep.
I know. I have to tell her. The movie I remember her the most in, and is the James Bond one, where she played one of the Bond girls. I can't remember her character, but I liked her character in that one. I mean, I've seen her in other stuff that I like too. I don't think I've seen her in something I didn't like. But the last time I saw her in the news, and she was complaining that she had to pay her ex-husband $20,000 a month it's in alimony or spousal support, and there was an article about how powerful women and wealthy women have to pay their spouses, and she was complaining about it. I'm like, hey, welcome to the world. This happens to guys all the time. Happened to me. So, but I just thought that was ironic. I was working with somebody too, and she had to do that. So she had to pay. She was in one of the same-sex things, and she had to pay her spouse money too. She said to me, "I'm just like you. I have to pay my ex."
Well,
welcome to the world.
welcome to equality.
I got a problem with men. Maybe because I don't know. Maybe it's sexist or whatever ist you want to put on it. But I have a problem with men who marry these rich or successful women, basically live the life of luxury, not doing shit. You always got projects in the works.
Yeah.
And then when she gets tired and says, "Look, I can't keep funding your lifestyle," right? Because that's basically what happens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So then they file for divorce and they want some ungodly amount of money because that's what I'm used to every month.
But that's the way
I have
it
a
goes
problem
for
that
women. But that's
man.
just your attitude towards, expectations of men based upon masculinity, right? Which I don't want anybody to
Yeah,
take
man,
care of me.
go get a new job, you idiot. I mean, you're going to sit there and bilk your wife for how many years because you need this lifestyle? What?
But yeah,
I
but
hate
the
that saying.
bottom line is it's supposed to be gender neutral. So if it's flipped, the same thing happens, which is,
If it was me and my wife, I'd say, you know what? Okay, I'm taking all my shit and I'm out of here.
Well,
I'm sure he's got a car. I'm sure, he's got all this crap that she paid for. But I'm taking my stuff and I'm going. I'll find some other way to make money. I wouldn't be going, "Oh, you have to pay me 20 grand or $30,000 a month for what?"
So Jameson's
Brought up to work again.
May of 2021 was when my payments end. It was a beautiful day, a beautiful month. So I agree with you. So, but yeah, I don't know. I thought it was funny that she was complaining about it. There was a bunch of other wealthy women complaining about it. And I go, hey, these are the laws that you wanted. You can't have different rules for yourself. I demand to be at the top. I demand to make the same as much money as men. I demand these advancements. And then when you divorce, well, wait a minute, why should I have to pay? If
Wasn't that why domestic partnerships came about? Because
well, well, here's the thing. Okay, so here's a question for both of you. Did you ever hear of prenuptial agreements? I mean, so you're rich, right? She's rich when she married this guy. She had money. Like, did you not have lawyers and managers tell you? Same with these basketball players. I mean, child support's, that's one thing. You can't have a prearranged thing on child support, but on alimony and division of assets, you can. And I know a lot of people say, well, there's certain sets of rules that you have to follow on a prenuptial agreement when you do it. But if you follow those rules, they're pretty much held up like 95% of the time. I know people say, no, that's not true. That is true if you look up the stats. So the question is, she's a rich lady. Who the hell was she listening to? Probably nobody. I'm in love, so she fell for that.
I'm in love.
Get the prenuptial agreement, right? If you're that wealthy. And the reality is that's a reasonable request these days, and if as soon as somebody says, oh, no, well, if you love me, you won't ask for that.
Bye.
Yeah, you have to,
Are you
so
here
it's
for the right reasons? So the flip side is that is, oh, if you don't love me, you must not love me because you want me to sign a prenup.
well,
Well,
the
you
prenup.
must not love me because you won't sign it.
The interesting thing is the prenup can narrow how much you have to pay. So it's not just that you don't get anything. It's like, because actually, if it's unreasonable, if it's shocks the conscience, meaning you nothing, you get nothing, that would shock the conscience given the disparity, right? So you have to, but you can negotiate it so that it's not uh, punitive. It's not onerous. That it's something that is fair and that you agree with beforehand, and that's it. If your career grows and you make more money, hey, that's it. You don't. But you can work in. So there's ways to do it to where it's not going to be. And I don't know. I just what do you think, Martine? Prenuptial agreements are these days are particularly for wealthy people are they should be standard. And so I don't understand it, but I don't understand this one either. I can't remember this context in the movie here, but Haley Bell, she's still a good looking lady, I think, and I think the thing on sexism or ageism does occur, but it happens to both men and women. But I think she did a good job in this movie. Martine, what do you think?
Well, she always does a good job.
Yeah,
No, I'm
I'm
talking
talking about
about
her acting, Mark. I'm talking about her acting,
yeah,
Martine.
yeah. That's what I'm talking about. She always does a good job.
I like the one of my favorite movies with her is the one with John Travolta and Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, the that was reference
He's a-
here.
Ding Dong. What's? Do you remember the
No,
movie
no,
or
no.
no?
The swordfish.
Swordfish.
Swordfish, yeah.
All right. I don't think I saw that one. I'll have to look at it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you
Okay.
have to
So,
watch that.
so this is one where Helmsworth and Barry kind of meet, and so obviously he's working her to work. But he also, once he saw that the crime occurred, the robbery occurred with the guy with the motorcycle, he understood that he's in a difficult spot. But he starts working his own, getting information from her on the likely mark. He's developing his own intel. Great rush. I like Chris Hemsworth. He's good in a lot of stuff. He's a good actor.
He should have just
Uh,
stuck with his Australian accent, though. Him trying to speak, I thought it was some dub voice or something. It didn't even sound.
yeah, you're right. He could have. That's workable. But nice car though. I have to
Yeah,
look at the
yeah,
car.
yeah,
A beautiful car, and it's when you work movie jobs every now and then when they'll do one of these old ones where they're using the old cars. I always liked looking at. Hey, Gambit, how you doing? But beautiful. I didn't catch the year on that one. It's just what early '70s or something like that. But it, beautiful, beautiful car. I like the color too. It's a beautiful color. um, but he likes the old cars, and that's how they meet. Now he's trying to gather. Here's the interesting thing. He's trying to gather information from the insurance agent on what would be a good heist, who would be a good mark, and what was the information. That's the deal. He kind of floats it to her. She kind of shuts him down at first, but eventually she starts working with him. Right. That's probably not unusual. There's probably that happens way more times than we think. I can only remember a few really high end things that happened while I was working. We had one where I'm going to say $10 million worth of art were stolen from a gallery in West Hollywood. I was the detective lieutenant, but it quickly got snapped up by major crime. So we weren't really involved other than the first report. But we don't really. It doesn't happen that often, though, or at least you don't hear about it. You don't hear about
never
those
happened where I worked.
Never. You weren't working where they had $10 million worth of art hanging around. So
I don't think the city had $10 million.
yeah, I remember one there where somebody stole what's his name? The guy that was related to Capula, and he's his nephew or something like that. He played in Valley Girls. He played in I can't think of his name now, but he had these macaws, some kind of bird.
Oh, really?
And they got stolen out of his house, and they were really expensive. I mean, obviously not millions, but tens of thousands. And they got stolen out of his house. That was a big deal. I forget who had that case, but I don't think we ever saw that one. So the bird hunt, the great bird hunt. But so he,
Great bird hunt. Yeah, I never got to work those kind of cases.
yeah, a lot of those got sucked up. Any really big newsworthy case involving actor, just with LAPD and the sheriff's department, they always got sucked up either by LAPD's robbery homicide or the sheriff's major crimes folks, and they had they had some other ones. We got to talk about other. Somebody brought it up. One of the commentators talking about the hole in the wall gang. The other way that you steal jewelry is you tunnel through the wall into the jewelry shop and you steal all the jewelry. This is one where they do research on the building. They find out where the security systems are. They find out where the weaknesses are in the wall, and they just go through they'll break into because generally the front and the back and the roofs of these places are well secured if you get diamonds and that kind of stuff in it. But the adjacent businesses are just cinder block lots of times. So they'll break into the adjacent business and then tunnel through the wall and get in there, and then they'll steal everything they can steal. So that's the tunnel, a hole in the wall gang, I think is what it was. And I know that in the great movie Casino, that's what one of the mobsters did on the side in that movie. If you remember the movie, it was with Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro. Pesci played something. Tony the Ant Spatoro or something like that, and and their side gig was jewelry theft, and they were known for, and his crew was caught doing that. So, but they called them the hole in the wall gang because that's how they did their jewelry thefts, as well as gathering information from valets and other stuff, and then they would hit hotel rooms where people were out gambling. So they did it that way as well. But that's the big one, is tunneling through and pawn shops and things like that. Let's see. It happens all at the Hilton Garden and safe deposit robbery. Disgruntled ex-security officer and 70-year-old thieves, tens of millions. Yeah, so it's not unusual getting the inside person, and Haley Berry represents the inside person in this crime that that Hemsworth's trying to do. And he also talks to get one big score, right? He's talking about getting one big score. I just need to get one big score, this is similar to the Heat movie, right? One big score,
right?
And so that's and he thinks and of course it's as the movie ESP, one big score means they're going to get caught, right? Something's going to happen because they're pushing it, right?
It's Hollywood.
That's Hollywood. All right, we are at the halfway mark. I think, Martine, are we queued up to roll with the commercial break?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, we'll see you guys in a couple minutes. And
there's only one location on the internet where you can get it all: movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis, official scoops from Geekosity magazine, reviews, and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield, where they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then. There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all: movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis, official scoops from Geekosity magazine, reviews, and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield, where they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then.
Welcome back to Morning Coffee with the Chief. We are reviewing the movie Crime 101, starring Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, Haley Berry, and Barry Keoghan, I think is his name. And also we got Nick Nolte in this as more of a supporting cast member at 85 years old. Looking pretty rough, but still does a good job. Anyway, so I did wanted to, so we got the insurance investigators. So the other thing is they didn't really talk about it, but we have insurance investigators who get involved in some of these thefts, doing the investigation. And did you ever work with insurance investigators, Scott?
No.
I did occasionally.
The only we worked with the group that goes after people pirating DVDs.
Yeah,
I don't even know if that's a thing anymore.
Yeah, Mappa or whatever they I think they probably have some version of it, but it's probably different because I worked with them too. And but we did have some. The thing about insurance investigators is as they're asking, Ruffalo's asking the original victims, we call them that, the victims, the jewelry guys. They're asking, how did they get the information, and was this an inside job? And that's actually pretty reasonable, right? That the theft occurs, but it's really a stage thing, and you get the insurance money as well. That's not unusual. So it's basically fraud. Insurance fraud is what we're talking about.
Again,
yeah, right. So
some people consider that basically a victimless crime, but it's like, okay, well, when you're complaining about how expensive your car insurance,
yeah,
all those stolen vehicles add up.
Yeah, it comes out of the risk pool. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we see it in fire insurance, right? You make it so expensive to rebuild your house after a fire here in California, then the costs go up, and for everybody. That's why the insurance companies pull out. They have. It's interesting what the Californian politically, they're making billions. Yeah, well, they're making the money off people in other states who have common sense rules and regulations, and you're saying, well, they should provide us service because they're making billions, but they're not making any money here, right? You still provide because you're making billions. It's like this socialist nonsense. It absolutely makes no sense. But one of the things that they talk about, Scott, and this is when they're jamming up Ruffalo's character. He used to have some of the best clearance rates, and most people don't know what a clearance rate is. And so I think maybe the audience, you want to explain what a clearance rate is for the audience?
So when you're a detective, you get a clearance rate, which it varies on where you're at. Like if you work a high crime area, your clearance rate is not going to be that high. And basically that is you're given so many cases, and it's basically like a batting average. So you're given 10 cases and you're clearing 3, you're at 33%. So that's not good. So ours was around, they wanted to see at least a 50% clearance, but there's ways you can get around that clearance, which has gotten some people in trouble.
Yeah,
because you can say contacted victim, victim non-desirous of prosecution. So now you're like 90% clearance rate. Somebody starts going, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And then they start analyzing your cases, and they're using the same pen.
Yeah.
For everything you're writing. And then when they go back and start asking the victims, did you talk to this detective? Who? Yeah. Never heard of him.
Oh,
yeah, and then you end up getting, perjury and everything for falsifying your.
Did that happen? I've never heard that one where I've heard of the exceptional clearance based upon MO, where an exceptional clearance is so if you don't have the you don't have the suspect, you don't have evidence on the suspect, but you know who he is based upon MO, meaning modus operandi. So you infer that it's the same guy, and you give it an exceptional clearance, right? Versus
like if let's say you had a shooting, you know who the shooting is through your informants. You know he's the guy, and then you go to the victim or victims, and they live in the same neighborhood. They don't want to say anything, so you show them a 6-pack, and they're like, looking right at the guy and go, "No, I don't recognize any of these people." And it's like, well, why do you keep staring? Why do you keep staring at number 5? Oh, I don't know. I just caught my eye, but that's not him. Oh, okay, well, that is him. So the only way you clear it, and you just say, "Hey, it's exceptional because of the fact that based on what I saw the victim do, and based on all your information, you know he's the suspect. You just can't get you can't. You're not going to win it in court. The DA is
Right.
not going to file it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So you give an exceptional clearance. I don't have evidence on this guy at all, but I have a solid belief that he's the guy. And so yeah, it's basically it's the clearance rate is how many cases you're given versus and how many of them you solve, and that's your average. And generally, the more effort you put in cases, the better the solve rate. So homicide tends to have a pretty good solve rate, but we put a lot of effort in that, right?
oh yeah, we had a fantastic
Yeah, yeah.
homicide.
And that's the way it should go. That's where you spend your money on that kind of stuff. Um, so some of the higher end stuff you'll have a good solve rate, but burgs, neighborhood burgs, car burgs, you're going to have a low solve rate there, right? It's going to be pretty low. But you'll have one guy hitting 100 cars, and you might get him for 2, right? Get a good case on
Right.
2 of those burgs, and that's the way it works. But that's a clearance rate. So they're saying his clearance rate has gone down. He's not doing as well. And, that kind of happens sometimes. I think detectives get burned out. To me, I always felt it's like managing cases and people get burned out. So I could see that with this character. He's there for the fun case, the most interesting case. He doesn't want to do all the, so he's kind of burned out on all the other stuff, but they imply it's other reasons. But I did like the chase scene between, was it our old Camaro? That's what it was, right? And our motorcycle guy. Although I thought that was unrealistic. I always think I don't think you do a chase scene in LA like that because you're never going to have streets that are that clear. Even at night, it ain't going to happen.
Trying to drive through Hollywood at night, yeah. Good luck.
You're going to, the 1 month of the year, you're going to have wet streets as well, which you have here. So it's, if you don't know anything.
At the beginning of when we first started talking, I thought it was basically just a movie of cliches. You got to have the car chase. You got to have the old fence.
Yeah.
The old actor fence guy. You got to have the new young buck coming up. You got to have the guy that just wants one final score to get out. You got to have a beautiful accomplice.
Yeah,
I mean,
Plus,
it's like they just check the boxes as they went down.
and then he's in the accents, right? And he flies over the car and he just gets up and walks away. Now, I don't know. I mean, I guess I've seen that happen, but you're going to be they do show that he's in pain, but also the water on the street, which is the old Hollywood trick to make it more interesting looking. If you have ever been to a movie shoot, I have, where they'll make the streets red because it's just cinematically, it's a little more interesting looking. But yes, you have to have the chase scene. I did enjoy the chase scene. I just thought it was unrealistic that the car was going to keep up with the motorcycle because there's so many places the motorcycle can go that the car can't go, and I think ultimately they would get away. What do you think, Martine? Good chase scene?
You're asking the wrong person.
The wrong person?
I don't
like.
I don't like car chases in movies.
Oh, you don't?
I found them boring. I said every time I see a car chase, the writer didn't know how to fill this gap.
Oh, got it. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's some classic ones. I mean, Gene Hackman's French Connection. I mean, all that wasn't really chasing. He's chasing a train, basically.
Yeah,
and The Bullet. I think that was a good one. The 7-Ups. We did all these movies.
But the thing is, a chase doesn't tell a story. It's not telling anything. It's just feeling.
It's yeah. Well, I tell you, when you get in a few chases and you're going pretty fast, it can get pretty scary. As far as I'm concerned,
when it's not filler.
I didn't look forward to pursuits. I didn't look forward to pursuits myself, but it's that. Yeah, I think the other part that the whole thing. When you talk about cliches here, a lot of this you see the throwbacks to other movies. So the whole lonely, thief that we saw with the Helmsworth character, that was De Niro's character. He meets the girl. He can't maintain the long relationship because he can't talk about anything because he's a thief, right? Same with De Niro and his character, right? Although in this movie, he goes off and lives happily ever after, and De Niro's character gets killed by by Pacino. So it's but that's I guess that's that cliche thing you're talking about. It's there as well. But here's the other thing that I was so this is a robbery that was pulled off that they thought was part of the pattern, and they realized that this is just a garden variety robbery suspects, and it went bad for him. Here's the lieutenant. He wants to clear all the cases on exceptional clearances. This is our guy, right? That's what's going on, kind of. And Ruffalo's saying, no, that's not the case. That's why we had to do the explanation of clearances. Here's the lieutenant.
He's also telling him about, hey, you said there was no gun pulled, and you're going against with Detective Townsend, the guy that shot.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's another cliche,
another cliche.
Shot an unarmed cop, LAPD shot an unarmed guy.
Yep.
And planted the gun.
And he's our guy for all the robberies. So, let's move on. And, the thing about that is, and the way because, sometimes you get pressured, it kind of fits, right? And it's like, I don't think so. That if you do exceptional clearances, then there's still people out there doing the robberies. You know what I mean? They're still out there, so pawn it off on somebody else just to get a higher clearance rate. This is what drove me crazy about when LAPD got caught fudging the numbers on their crime numbers. It was like 2,000 crimes they downgraded just so their stats looked good, and they ultimately got caught. And they looked horrible. I mean, but the thing about it is the bad guy's still out there. Why would I want to pin it on somebody else? I want to get the crook, because the crooks is still going to keep doing whatever. But yeah, this is, if you understand police work pressure to get a clearance rate, even if it's using these tricky ways to do it, it does happen. And I will say, when they evaluated our old alma mater on are we writing the right reports and writing the right crimes, it was funny. I remember the evaluation, what they said about the sheriff's department. Oddly, we didn't find that dynamic on the sheriff's department. And this is the LA Times. They go, oddly, the sheriff's department told the truth. Is that what you're saying? Is oddly? I mean, that's what the LA Times said. Oddly, we didn't see any dynamic in the sheriff's department like that. Oddly,
if anything, we were trying to boost the crimes.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. Oddly, and I'm like, what's oddly? We were looking out for the community. We told the truth. We followed a culture of honesty. We didn't downgrade reports just to get better number. What's oddly about that? But that's what they said. I couldn't believe it. I go, who are these idiots on the LA Times? I should, I'm going to have to write in one time to the LA Times. Oddly, I read your article and it was actually truthful.
I never was. Only one time did I ever felt like, I wouldn't say pressure. I was just questioning a lot on the way I was doing something.
Yeah.
But I just kind of took that as my boss having a little lack of experience. So him questioning me on about a bunch of stuff towards it, I finally, just when it played out after a week, he was like, "Oh, okay, now I understand what's going on now." But I mean, I fought tooth and nail on a case, and the district attorney was like, "No, it's just an assault with a deadly weapon." I said, "You know what? I would buy that if he shot at him once, but 5 times, you're pretty trying to kill the guy." So I think it's attempted murder. And we went round and round, and finally he goes, "Okay, I'll give you this one. Give it. It fits the definition of attempted murder." But
I explained that on a show. We were talking about the migrants and whether they had criminal records or not. That was all the mess. And the Cato Institute was saying only 17% had violent. And I had to explain to folks, it's like when the DA gets the case, they're not always charging the right crime, or they might plea a violent crime down to a non-violent crime just to get it off their docket. That doesn't mean violence didn't occur. that does, so when somebody's arrested, like a rape victim, a rape is a typical example, right? So the rape happens, and the victim just, it did happen. She says it happened. Even the suspect might even acknowledge some of it. But if the victim says, I don't want to go through the court, which is not unusual, I mean, that's not unusual in those situations. Do you keep that guy in the country? I mean, that's, just because we didn't prosecute him, right? Or we prosecute him for something less, or what? Yeah, I mean, do you keep that guy? So there's this whole business, because it is a business. I try to explain, running a DA's office is a business, and they make business decisions, and lots of times those business decisions benefits the crook, and that's just the reality of managing a DA's office, right? And you just talked about it, Scott. He just was, let's get the easy one, then I can get the plea and I can move this one off my plate.
Right. I can plea this down to assault with a deadly weapon, no problem. We're going to have to go to court if it's a attempted murder. And it's like, well, that isn't your, people listen to these people running for district attorney or the incumbent running, and it's like, oh, my office has a 97% conviction rate.
Yes.
And everybody's like, damn, they're doing their job. But they don't realize that 90% of those are plea deals.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We did remember the whole tagger stuff when we were doing that stuff at
yeah.
So we would get these guys on multiple felonies, get them to plead to multiple felonies, knowing full well the DA, if he had 20 felonies for felony vandalism, they would take the plea for 2 and dismiss the 18.
10%.
You're right, and but they still get the claim. All of them were cleared, and they got a conviction, and they loved it because it just boosted their clearance rates. And since we had all the evidence, and 99% of the time we got a confession, right? They were dead bang. They loved them, and I was at the point, I don't care. I get them on 2 felonies, even though they did 20. I'm fine with that. I just want them out of the business, right? And it really worked. It was a good program. But yeah, it just, I think the other thing that was unrealistic about this, okay, Scott, so here's, California, right? So Mark Ruffalo,
unfortunately,
Mark Ruffalo's having a problem, and he ends up in this new house that he rents, and he's a detective from LAPD, and is looking out at the Pacific Ocean. Did you notice that?
Yes.
Did you notice that?
I don't know if detectives make that kind of, that's like $1 million. That's like 8,000, 10,000, 12,000, depending on the size, a month apartment. That's your whole monthly salary is going just to your housing.
And it wasn't a little box. It was like, just the one floor that looked, it was a good 1,000 feet just on the top floor looking out at the ocean. I'm going, okay.
No way in hell. No way in hell.
Some location manager wanted to make sure their buddy got paid some money on this
exactly.
one. So he picked that location so his buddy, who has the beach house that he gets to come do barbecues at, gets a little bit of money out of this. But there ain't no way in hell a detective, probably paying alimony, is going to be sitting in a beach house overlooking the Pacific Ocean with the couple thousand foot of beach frontage. That ain't going to happen. So I was like, this drives me nuts when they do this stuff, right? Because it's not realistic at all. But I mean, it was, even though, you remember the series Bosch? So he lived in the Hollywood Hills and he overlooked it, and I mean, we know the Hollywood Hills. That's prime. If you're on the Hollywood Hills and you're overlooking Hollywood or LA, depending on what side you're on, that's a multi-million-dollar house. And
I think in the book series, I read a lot of the books because I like those books. I think it was like his mom's house that he inherited after she died, or an aunt or something like that.
Yeah, because I was looking at that going, no way in hell. You're going to find that.
Hollywood Hills. Yeah, good luck.
And so
tell Angelina and all her kids to move out of the Hollywood Hills.
So our Ruffalo character he finds, I forget how he gets to her, just looking at the different insurance coverage for the thieves, and he starts talking to them, and he finds Halle Berry. And he goes to, now this is a committed detective. He goes to yoga.
He asked Halle Berry to polygraph the victims.
But he goes to yoga class. Now I don't. Scott, have you ever been to yoga class to develop a witness or a lead?
Pat, the most I hated of this movie was the whole yoga shit in the front and the whole yoga shit in the end. What the hell? Why?
I just can't see these some some of these older because if you're getting into robbery homicide, you're probably in your 40s, right? Some of them are in pretty good shape, but 40s is young for like a robbery homicide detective. Your 40s, mid 40s to late 40s and your 50s. Some of them hang out till they're 60 because they just love the work. But going to yoga class, don't see it happening.
No.
Even Columbo, I don't see Columbo doing it either. So,
You won't ever see me.
Yeah, that's it.
I had a doctor one time tell me, he goes, maybe you should take up yoga. And I said, maybe you should change your profession. Do I look like somebody who could possibly do yoga?
So then there's
the
he gets told you need to take a calming, relaxing music meditation too, and I'm like, oh God, it's got But I was actually working with him, and I think him. I can't remember his name now. He was working the desk at TSB, older guy, and I loved him. He was great, but he spoke his mind all the time. But he goes, I'm under so much pressure. I'm on high blood pressure medication. But you know what I started doing?
No, it wasn't Gary DeBont.
No, not DeBont. No. I know you know what I'm talking about, right? Because he was, and he says, I do meditation, and at home I do meditation. That's the only thing that works for me. So, and it was funny. He would not be a guy that I would think would do. Because he was gruff. He spoke his mind. He didn't like incompetence, which is why I loved him. It was great, because he held, he was the watch deputy. He held everybody accountable on the shift at doing their stuff, and he was great, but it caused him to have high blood pressure, and he used meditation to calm down. So, but
I moved to a different state. My blood pressure went, woo.
When you, oh yeah. No,
now if I feel stressed out, I just grab my AR-15, my assault weapon, and I go back to the target. I shoot about 30, 40 rounds. I feel great.
Have you ever been to the range, Martine?
No.
I tell you, I'm not like Scott. I wouldn't say I'm a gun guy, but
I'm not a gun guy either. I mean, I don't have 1,000 guns.
Well, but going to the range and shooting, believe it or not, for me is relaxing.
Yes.
It's you go by a couple hundred rounds, get a few targets, and
clear your mind to get your sight picture correct, and concentrate on your breathing and steadying yourself and getting your
to do it right, to hit the center of mass on a target. To do it right, you have to clear your mind out of all the other nonsense, right? And so it's relaxing because you're focused on it's breathing control and calming down and getting your sight picture and all that other stuff. And the farther the way the target is, the more you have to really focus on that to be successful at hitting the target itself, let alone hitting it center and 10 ringing it, right? That's what if you hit the center, that's what they call it. And for me, it's very relaxing when I go. I haven't gone in a while, but I enjoy it. My son wanted to learn, and a few years back, and of course I was separating from my ex at the time. She was all upset about it, but whatever. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll take you shooting. And I started out with a revolver, teaching with a revolver, and then I moved it up to the automatic. But I made him go through a gun safety class first. Go to a gun safety class and with the range here, and then I'll take the basic shooting stuff, and then I'll give you a little lesson in combat reloads and that kind of, because they all play the soldier of fortune stuff, they all, but doing a combat reload in real life is a different story, right? And
my son's on a SWAT team in California, and they went to the range, and he's a sniper, and he loves to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And so they went to the range, and one of his buddies there says, I'll give you $100 if you can shoot a marble off a golf tee. He's like, all right. So he goes, I did my normal routine, clear, got myself all lowered down and all this, started concentrating. And he goes, I hit the marble without hitting the tee. And I go, then what'd you do? He goes, held my hand out for $100.
So
But
I
he
was.
says, sight picture, breathing control, trigger
Yep.
pull control. It's all very relaxing if you.
Yeah, and a lot of it's muscle memory, but yeah, it's I was the last time I really shot anything serious. I was evaluating whether we could do the M4s or the MP5s for what is that TIU that team, and so I went to the range and I had never shot a machine gun, right? So they were going to have me shoot them, right? And I said, okay, and they had the big gong up on the hill, whatever.
Yeah.
So they give me the MP5 and they put it on the 3-round burst. First, they let me shoot at a regular target with it, and as you're shooting the machine gun, obviously it rises on you a little bit, but that's not that heavy of a gun, so you could keep it under control, right? But they said, okay, see if you can hit that gong up there, and that's I don't know, a couple hundred yards away. It's a pretty good distance, and I hit that damn thing. They go bing. They go, oh my God, sir! I was a commander at the time, and I don't count myself as that, but I enjoy doing that. And then I did the M4. I like the MP5 better because it was easier to handle. But what's they call it? The M4.
I was dead set against that purchase.
Oh, were you?
I was in charge of the purse strings. That's why we.
You know what? I went and checked them out, and I just
Captain
looked at.
Cruz loved him.
Oh, I know.
And I was dead set.
I know, and he was so for it. And I said, well, that's why I made the decision. I'm going to go check them out, and went to the range, and I forget who it was. The captain at SEB, the SWAT team guy that did it, black guy. I can't remember his name now. And
Marv Washington.
Marv. Yeah, he was great. He was great to talk to. We were just trying to make what's the right decision. And then when we talked about, what are we facing? What would they be facing if it was in a train, and or bus, and what would they be facing if it's not? And what would be the right weapon? And so we ended up getting both because we were stuck with that conundrum. If it's not in the bus or a train, then the M4 would be a better weapon, right? So, and we did the whole penetration thing. Can it go through the glass and all that other stuff? And yeah, but you're right. Cruz was pushing me into that decision, but I ended up making it with Marv. I said, well, what do you think, Marv? And he gave me his opinion, and I said, okay, well, we'll get them both then.
Yeah.
So now
I was a huge because I denied the purchase order. So, one of the sergeants who was running TIU at the time was very pissed off at me because we're friends. And I'm like, I don't see the use for them.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, they're better than the M4. And I said, at what? Tell me where it's better. Well, it's more compact. Okay, by what? 2 inches, 3 inches? But you're giving up a lot of ballistics for 2 to 3 inches of length. But then he sold it to Dan, and Dan was all, oh, yeah, these are. And one of the reasons he says, because they're sexy.
Yeah, I know he said that.
Yeah, what?
That's why.
I want a weapon that's going to put a person down with one shot, not a whole magazine. And I go, if somebody's standing at the end of a platform, I have somebody with an M4 and somebody with an MP5, I'm telling the dude with the M4 to shoot because he can hit him very easily, and it goes through a vest.
So I got to ask you this.
Spray and pray with that MP5.
Do you remember that Carson case where it was on early mornings and we had guy said that he had a grenade and that he was going to blow up the grenade or whatever, and I was the field sergeant, right? And I got it, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't want to get close. Were you the guy that I gave the AR-15 to and get a high spot on this guy? Because I said, anybody trained on the AR-15? Well, we don't have anybody certified, sir. I remember what I said. Any form of military, and I thought it was you who raised your hand. I can't remember now.
I wasn't me.
It wasn't you. I said, okay, get it, and I'll worry about that later if we have to shoot. And I had somebody. I said, I just want you at the front door. We're going to call the guy out if we can get him to come out. And if he's got a grenade in his hand, he goes to throw it. You got to shoot him, right? And and then I had the helicopter above, and I said, we're going to call him out. He says he's going to come out with the grenade. And I said, I asked the helicopter, can you get low? I need you to get low enough where you're not drowning us out with the wash, but at the same time you're close enough to see what he's got in his hand. And it all worked out. He came out with a smoke grenade. He goes, "Oh, I don't think that's a real grenade, sir. I think it's smoke." And then we called him out further, and sure enough, that's what it was. But yeah, so
Oh,
they have their place.
I would have loved to have been that guy.
Oh, the guy with the rifle. Yeah,
Yeah.
I go, God,
distance for a Marine. It's like
I could see it now, Scott. I could see it now. If the guy had to shoot, what do you mean he's not certified on the AR-15? Well, you know what? We don't have anybody certified because you guys aren't sending them to the range. So I made the best decision I could make. You know, you end up having to make those decisions as the incident commander, right? And you go, oh, well, here we go, crossing my fingers. We'll see what happens. Okay. So, but we end up in this situation where Ruffalo's character and Barry's character come together. Barry's character gets approached by Hemsley to do this last deal where they're going to have a wedding. The wedding is insured. They're going to have diamonds and cash at this place. And Hemsley he's working out a theft, and then Barry's character is she's beat up basically by the motorcycle guy and forced to give information. And that's when she starts working with Ruffalo to undermine the guy. So basically, you find out that they're going to undermine the guy with the motorcycle, right? They end up. I don't know how Ruffalo knows how this is going to go down this way. Obviously, he's playing it. He's ad-libbing as he goes along here. But
well, he becomes a courier. They take the real courier off the plane when it lands, and then he takes his place.
And he's doing this all by himself. So we're getting into fantasy land, Scott. Fantasy land here. No backup.
I'm just cowboying up, man. I'm just gonna do it.
This is fantasy land, right? And so he's, you know, Helmsley's got him. But I like the rich guy too. The rich guy plays a rich, arrogant white guy. A rich guy. What do you mean? You know, don't you know? You know, he's like, okay, they're pointing a gun at you, and I like his fiance. Just give him the money. But you know, hey, rich guys don't like giving up money, right, for nothing in return, right?
Well, first of all, where Ruffalo's standing, and the Irish kid, or when the kid comes in, and now he's got everybody at gunpoint, and he's pointing a gun at Mark Ruffalo, you got a purely easy open headshot.
I know.
And if you miss, you're going to maybe graze or hit Helmsley's shoulder, but you're still going to end up hitting the bad guy. So I don't know. I didn't get the whole ending. I'm like, what the hell? I would have plugged him as soon as he came through the door.
Yeah, I know. There's so many loose ends here. So what happens to the guy in the uniform, the valet? What happens to him? You see him following him, and then you see he's got the uniform. The guy just disappears. We don't see what happened. You know, I'm like, that's okay. Okay, hey, the guy in the valet was at work, and then he's disappeared. We don't see him ever again. And you know, I don't know.
Seen Pat. There's not a single LAPD car anywhere.
I know.
They're flying through the street. LAPD has a helicopter up 24 hours a day.
Yep. I know. So
first call, they would have been flying there looking for, and then finding the chase. Yeah. It's like the whole street's just any chase scene in any movie. All the traffic's cleared, and these cars cops are never to be found. And it's like, okay, that's not even close to what. That's why people get these false perceptions of it's a car chase, and you know, it's like Hollywood does a disservice to police movies because none of it's ever really realistic.
Because they'll expect, why aren't you doing that? Here's the other thing. As we see in the movies, the big score is always the downfall, last big score, right? So you know it's going to be a mess, right? And either they're not going to make it, or in this case, it actually just works out for Chris. But that's the cliche you're talking about, the last big score. And this, there's no way I would put myself in this.
Always go sideways. Last big score always go sideways. There's always a monkey in the wrench.
I do like the fiance. What do you just give him the money? What the hell are you talking about?
It's insured. Just give him
the money. So I do like that. And here's Chris here, and So anyways, I think the final was way unrealistic. I don't know, Martine. What do you think? Just this the whole cliche, the last big score, no backup for Mark Ruffalo, just completely nonsense from a police. Oh, I know you're not a cop, but just this is just fantasy, right? Hollywood fantasy stuff.
Mm, pretty much, yes.
Pretty much, yes.
I mean,
I would. Here's the other thing, Martin. I would be pissed if I was Chris, and I'd be wanting to deal with Nick Nolte.
Oh,
yeah, especially when he said to
Yeah,
the biker,
yeah,
"If I see you again, I will kill both of you."
right. And what does Nick Nolte say? Well, okay, you're going to rob him after they rob them. You
Mm.
know, I, you know, that kind of plays a little bit like the Heat thing, where he gets undermined by one of the guys in the crew, and then one of the guys gets ripped off. He makes a deal with him. I'll buy back my bonds at this level, and then he tries to kill him. And so you get this betrayal thing going on. There is no honor amongst thieves, right? As you talked about, Scott. But yeah, I'd be pissed at it. So because Nick Nolte had this kid following him all over the place to track him, and he knew that. Helmsley knew that. But yeah, this is Helmsley. He should. I don't want to say he should have taken out money, but he should have just went to another state to do his work. Get out of there, I guess. But I guess he knew L.A. That's where he was a foster kid. But it's interesting. Once they get the blood, that's when you realize the background. He goes to the foster mom, and she's the only one that has a number for him, for Chris Helmsley, right?
yep.
And that's when the whole story begins to come out. Why doesn't he have a family and all that other stuff? And we saw this in another movie, and I can't think of the movie at this point. But, we did the Texas Killing Fields, where they were targeting the girls that were in foster care or coming out of juvenile hall into prostitutions. Nick Nolte has retired from acting as of now, hasn't he? Well, this movie was released in 2026, and he's 85 now. So it was released this year.
Maybe
I
he
don't
just
know.
needed that one last payday.
Yeah, he needed the last big score too, I guess.
Oh God, I hope not.
So but you know what? For his age, 85. Now that I know he's 85, I guess he looked rough, but I thought he was younger. So I guess
I never thought he'd make it. I never thought he'd make it to 85.
85. So anyways, but he's given us a lot of good entertainment. So what happens is our motorcycle guy gets the drop on all of them, with Ruffalo getting the drop on him, and eventually he gets shot, right, by Hemsworth, right? I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember. Yeah, and but here's the thing: he shot him didn't he shoot him in the back? I'm trying to think. I think he did. And how do you explain all that if you're Mark Ruffalo at the end, right?
Yeah, I don't. I've been trying to.
I'm looking at the fire. How do if a good homicide investigation is going to go? There's something rotten in Denmark, and it's now in L.A.
Okay, I can see the. Okay, this is how you're going to explain it. And then he's like, no. He's like, well, then we're going to start an investigation on all this, where you're importing all this.
Yeah,
so then he changes, and the girlfriend or the fiance is like, just do what he's doing, whatever. But then what is he going to tell? How is he going to explain that he's got a gunshot wound to his back?
Yes,
probably traveled up and through his heart and killed him. How are you going to how do you explain shooting him in the back if he had the drop on you? So I was the same way. I'm like, how are you going to flip this? How are you going to?
Yep. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, they clearly didn't have a cop on as a technical director. So
no.
they'd have worked it out a little differently, right? And it's funny. I worked movie jobs where they have they'll have cops on, but they were like, I did one where it was an older generation. It was homicide cops, and I was working the movie job, and they were deputies. I don't know if I told the stories. The extras were deputies, looked like deputies, except their dump pouches or the speedy loader pouches were turned upside down and all this stuff. What the hell is? And I'm in uniform and go, what the hell? And I said
I know some
something, and
guys that turn their speedy loaders upside down.
I go, why
I
would you
never
do that?
understood
You know,
that.
if you're in a foot chase and you might end up with no bullets, right? So why
Right.
would you do that?
Well, they said it was faster to get to them because they would,
Yeah,
drop
that's
on
what
your
they
hand.
said. What are you talking about? That's the old dump pouch stuff. I go, that's nonsense, you know. So
Yeah.
'cause you're going to lose your ammunition, right? So, because even the dump pouches, if you remember the dump pouches, they were snapped upward, right? So they faced up, and you snapped them, and then they rolled down, and they emptied in your hand, right? That's how a dump
Right.
pouch worked. But a speed loader, if you clip it, then it's gone, right? You're not going to have anything, right? And I
Right.
don't, you know, I don't, what, that's not how we are taught to do this. So, yeah, I never played the whole modify my uniform because it looked cooler stuff. When I worked the streets, I didn't care. I didn't have the Hoyt Hostler. I didn't have any of that stuff.
I don't do it with my cars. I never did it with my
Yeah, yeah,
uniform. I mean, I did like the nylon gear when I took over
yeah,
or was part of TIU. I did like all the outer vest and the nylon gear, which I was the one that got the department to go to outer vest, but
yeah.
no,
I
none of
remember
the
that. I
girls.
allowed you to do that, and
Yeah, I never got credit for it, but
what was that?
I never
Okay.
got credit for it. But I'm the one that fought and got the Army Corps of Engineers to
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
do
Yeah.
their.
I hate it, Scott. I tell you, I hate that damn look. I hate those damn because now the whole department wears them. I think
Right.
it looks horrible, but with back problems myself, I understand the value of them.
Yeah, exactly.
It was
Exactly.
I forget I was listening to a show and I didn't get a chance to get up and talk about it because but yeah, the whole load bearing vest stuff. Um, Wearing a gun belt for 30 plus years, everybody's got back problems. So the load bearing vest takes it off, right? Because it was a uniform appearance thing that they were talking about, and and I remember you bringing that study to me, and when we were talking about it, did we do a pilot? We did a pilot for a couple months
Yeah.
for our footbeat
So the
guys.
Army Corps of Engineers came in every week, and they had their set group of people. And they weighed their initial gun belt weight was I think like 21 pounds.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
because we
it got
participate.
to
We
like
participated in
12.
the study. That's right. I couldn't
Yeah.
remember all of it. We participated in the study, and then we found that the weight bearing vests would likely, I think it was reduce back injuries, right?
Back, knee, and ankle injuries and hip injuries.
And so then we took it to the uniform committee, and they would only approve it for footbeats, a
Yes.
transit at first.
At first, yeah.
And then eventually everybody wanted it at transit, but then it spread out to the department. ALADS pushed it. And so, yeah, you changed the entire department's uniform look with those damn things. And I hate it every day, but it was the right decision. It was the right decision. It was the right decision.
These people going out with back and hip and knee injuries, and I'm like, there's got to be a better way.
And you pushed me, so I was ultimately the one that said, "Yeah, we'll do it at my unit," right? Even though I hated it.
Right. Well, because we had the majority of foot beats.
Yes. Yeah.
And they were like, well, I remember somebody from why don't we just do it at Universal Studios? They have foot beats, and it's just a couple of people. And I was like, no, the Army Corps of Engineers wants a broader test group rather than just two. And to their credit, man, that report came out and I was like, bingo, we're going to get this.
And they hated it too. All the executives hated it, but they couldn't argue with the facts, right? So
it lowered considerably the amount of back problems, hip problems, knee problems, ankle problems. It lowered all those work-related injuries, and that was one of the big selling points. Is like, look, we've cut down these injuries. I think it was like by 45%.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, really? Yeah.
But then people don't take care of the outer vest, which
I don't get.
And
then they don't want to use it.
I think the argument from our force guys that they give you handholds for the bad guys too, that was reasonable. But I think overall, I know what we're talking about, Martine, is in the past you just had a clean uniform and all your equipment is essentially on your belt. So you had, how much weight was it, Scott?
Average was 21 pounds.
So 21 pounds was right on your belt, which meant that, and you usually had 2 handcuff cases in the back if you were actually a working cop. And over time, that causes bulges in your lower back, right?
Yeah.
And so everybody has, you end up with back problems. I have back problems.
And you sit against them when you're
You
in a
sit
car.
against them, and so what we did is Scott finagled a test study at my unit at Transit with the Army Corps of Engineers. Did they seek you out, or did you find them?
No, I saw an advertise on what was that website for cops?
Yeah.
Police Beat or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that. Well, I saw just a little blurb about the Army Corps of Engineers is looking for departments who are willing to take part in a equipment weight reduction program study.
Yeah.
So I called the dude up and he's like, yeah, sheriff's department, all those. Oh, you guys would be the number one place we'd want to be.
Yeah, because
And I
it's
said,
the
well, let me
largest
see if
sheriff's
I can.
department, foot beat, all that stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. They're like, oh, you're a perfect test ground. So I said, well, what do I need to do? So I filled out these documents. I think Johnny B's the one that signed them.
Yep.
He says, all right. He goes, this is never going to happen. You know, Johnny, that's never going to happen. But we'll just see when it flies, you know.
We were a bunch of naysayers, and I said, all right, we can do it, you know. And yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So you
Well,
changed
the other alternative was suspenders over the uniform or suspenders under the uniform, and
we looked
have
at the
cross one like some of the
cross
Eastern
one.
departments.
I do like that look, but we looked at all that stuff, and so anyway, so our in the end, Mark Ruffalo is gifted. So Chris Hemsworth, I think he goes back to the girlfriend, recontacts her, right? He decides to recontact her. The goal was he had to get out of town for Ruffalo, but he leaves the car to Ruffalo. Of course, this is all fantasy, right? But
Right.
okay,
I didn't get the significance of any of that. I get the significance with the girl because he really liked her.
right.
So he sends her a picture from his childhood, which she says, you're what kind of person are you? I have no pictures of.
Yeah.
So he does send her. I get that and then he turns around on the 101 and drives back to L.A. and
Goes back.
she gets the picture.
The one
But
girl
Ruffalo and Holly Berry's,
he gave her money, right? So he stole money, right? Yep. And
right.
And then he gets the car, which is, of course, I'd be retired. I'd get to retire now.
I don't get the part though with Ruffalo. Here's the guy you've been taking so much crap for.
Yep.
From all your higher ups from the department, they're threatening to move you and discipline you and do all this shit, and now you have him, and you just let him go.
Well, they pin it all on the other guy, but yeah, you just let him go. You just let him go. I'm sorry, Columbo would not do that.
No, and then they have the speck of blood from the car.
Yeah.
And it matches Mark, or not Mark, but Hemsworth.
Yeah. And you got this other guy.
What do they do about the dead guy? Because I know their DNA ain't matching. I
mean, hey, they're not looking for the valet either, right? So I mean, it's that was unbelievable, and so it was a feel-good ending. That they had to have a feel-good ending, which made it completely unrealistic, right? Although I would like to have the car.
I would like the premise of everything has to have a happy ending. To me, is a bunch of
nonsense. Yeah. So I think even in the book Charles Dickens, Fagin does actually get caught. He uses the kids to steal, and then he fences it, and so he actually gets sold. And so Nick Nolte doesn't really get caught in this thing too. So he's just going to keep going. I would have rolled
around him in a heartbeat. Even if Ruffalo let me go, I'd be like, hey, here's the name and number of the main guy.
Yeah. Oh, this guy. Yes, absolutely. I agree. Because he set him up. He set him up. So a lot of loose ends here. I don't think, Chris would be walking away from that. You'd want to close that loop. Not that you're right. Not that he has to kill him. He just needs to give here's the car and look in the trunk. There's boxes of evidence against my fence.
Exactly.
Here's a file, go get the
here's
guy.
Your car I'm giving you, but look in the trunk. That might help you out.
Unless he's afraid it's going to lead back to him. But, anyways, I just, so I know a lot of this was just fantasy movie making, and but it was still a good and entertaining movie. What do you think, Martine? Good and entertaining movie, but a little bit of a lot of Hollywood fantasy nonsense
Yeah,
at the
it's
end.
not.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
not what.
very realistic. If you want if you want to eat popcorn, go ahead. If if you want a real crime movie, look somewhere else.
This ain't, yeah, something that's a little more realistic, you know. I mean, one of the reasons I do like doing the real life stories, you know, where they're based on real true stories, is because they tend to follow, you know, they use real. You can connect it to your real police work. This one, you know, yeah, it didn't, it nothing from front to back really replicated anything that, you know. I mean, obviously, other than the using the lingo, clearance rates,
Mm.
and you know, nonsense like that, and maybe a little pressure from the boss to get a higher clearance rate, some of that kind of stuff, and then the story that, you know, kids who come out of foster care go into crime. Okay, some of that is accurate, but the whole yeah, just the storyline doesn't track. After that kind of stuff doesn't track, is realistic.
I mean, the clearance rate to me was one of those tools where you have a guy on your team who's lazy and doesn't do
Yeah,
shit, and
yeah,
it was like, oh well, your clearance rate is low, so we're going to transfer you out, or you need to find a new home, or whatever. It was one of those type, because when you at certain places you work, as you know, is your clearance rate's always going to be shit because there's so much crime going on. Is
yeah,
that,
yeah.
oh, your your solve rate's
Well,
going up, but the crime's going up with it, so you're never really, you're always at the same place.
well, you're hopefully your benchmark, because I ran a couple of detective bureaus. You're benchmarking against other detectives at that
Right, right,
unit,
right.
so everybody should be in a, you know, reasonably appropriate range. And you know, sometimes you got the burned out guy, and if the person was honest with you, yeah, I'm a little burned out, but I don't, I'm not ready to lead detectives. Um, you know, you give them the junk cases, you know,
Yeah.
and you give the good cases the other one, and they know what the score, right? And we had one that, and I made them the, you know, where they file the patrol cases, you know, where there's not a lot
Filing
of follow up.
deputy.
Yeah, the filing depth. They're still a detective, but they're not doing a lot of follow up anymore. They're just taking the low level stuff over to the DA and getting files and getting rejections. But yeah, you know, I managed it, and I would use the solve rate just as a, you know, kind of a divining rod. You got to look at this person, right? But then you look at what case, because you have to look at the number of cases given to them. You have to look at the type of cases that they get. Certainly, robbery cases are way different than burg cases. You know, do you see him there in the six pack? Is he there? He's not there. Okay, case closed. You know, those guys the robbery guys had a lot easier than the burg guys, right? Because you're, at least in my mind, the burg guys had to really understand who the street, at least in West Hollywood, because if you knew who the street urchins were, you could solve burgs. A lot of our robberies,
Right, exactly.
right? You know, if you knew who the, you know, drug addicts were and that kind of stuff, you could solve burgs, right? Um, but you had to get out there and know them, right? You know, the robbery guys, most of our robberies came from somewhere else. You know, the
Right.
people came to
And they're
rob
random.
and left, right? And they're random. Uh, but if you think you had a good suspect and the victim can't pick them out, yeah, then you're done, right? You know,
Right.
that case is closed. You have to wait till the next one. You might be able to use that case on another case, meaning just to support a pattern. But I just felt that that was it was easier to close out cases. It wasn't as easy to solve those robbery cases, but it was easy to close them out. That's why. But I would look at the totality: who was getting what cases, and then who got the heavier cases. We had a couple of really high profile cases that were all over the news, and so you kind of scale back on the guy that's got that case because they're busy, and you try to give them a little bit more resources. Then you have to rely on the rest of the team to handle everything else. So I enjoyed managing detective bureau, but I tried to be fair about it because I remember when I was a detective, they were not fair. They just, if you were a good guy and you were working, you got the cases. That's all there was to it. And because the sergeant's just looking for the easy way out of the problem, you know, just keep giving them to Pat or keep giving them to these other guys, or And, I said, well, this is why people get burned out, because they keep getting the cases, and the ones that aren't doing anything never get challenged. So that's why I never went back as to be well, you worked a lot of crews. It's probably similar. But there's the case aces, and there's everybody else that follows. That's kind of how I looked at it.
Just like the movie The Other Guys.
yeah. So
you got your ace dudes. The command and your sergeant think that they're, they walk on water and they're the greatest detectives in the world, and then the other guys are just out there beating the streets, doing what they're supposed to be doing, and then all of a sudden the luster comes off the because they come to find out that they're fudging shit on their cases, and it all falls apart, and then all of a sudden all the guys that were pushing them how great they were are all backpedaling. Oh yeah I knew they were up to something, but
yeah, I'll address the last comment here and then we'll close out. But on Gamut, yes, cases are so ambiguous and never ending. The reason one of the things I didn't like, I prefer patrol, is that day was clean. You did what you had to do, you wrote your reports, and you went home. Yeah, you might have to go to court on the case, but you're done with that case. When you're a detective, that's your case to the end, right? Until you close it out somehow. So that means you're rounding up victims, you're rounding up the witnesses to get to court. You're going to get the evidence from the lab. You're getting the results. You're the one who pulls it together. You are case management. That's what you are. I mean, case management with a gun and a little bit of excitement here and there, but it's a paper chase. And I preferred a nice clean. I made the hook, got the evidence on the guy, wrote my report, and handed him off to detectives, and they finished it up. Now I tried to do a good report so the detective didn't have to do a lot of follow-up, but and we had a lot of burglars. I remember you'd come in with an arrest. Who's got a burglar? I do, and the burglar detective would be all over me and just make sure I got certain things in the report. And but that's why I liked patrol. It was just cleaner. I don't know, Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, it was a great. I mean, for the 10 years I did it, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, we worked a different way than regular detectives, or because our job was to grab your cases. You get your cases every day, and usually it was like 10 a day for 10 of us, or I would say between 7 and 10 cases from the night before that went in your file cabinet that never seemed to get smaller. Your files never seemed to shrink.
Yep.
And then you'd go out and start contacting people. When I retired, I went to work for a subcontractor for the Department of Defense, doing different types of investigations and traveling around a little bit. And I finally told him, look, I'm supposed to be contacting people at different places who are actually ordered to talk to me. I'm having more trouble getting them than I did victims in Compton. They're supposed to have to talk to me. They're ordered by their command to talk to me, and they won't show up. Or, oh yeah, I'll be there. I'll meet you at 12. And you're sitting there till at like 2:30, going, okay, I guess he's finally not really showing up. So I did about 2.5 years of that, and I was making really good money, but then it was like, no, I'm done. I can't keep doing this. But yeah, once you're given a case, and that's the thing about, you could be over your head in cases, and then all of a sudden you get information that a case that you had a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody gives you the information on that case. And then not only that, if there's a gang homicide, you're doing your cases, and then you're going to go help homicide. I mean, like I said, our homicide was fantastic. But again, they're up in a central location, and you're working right there with a homicide. So now you're working with them to help them solve their case. So now you're working that, and you're working your own cases. It was like, after a while, there was burnout. Guys were just like, and and myself, it's like, I'm like, I need a break. We don't get overtime in gangs. We don't get to work over, even though we're 40 and out. I love it when places like Walnut, we 40 out by Thursday every week. And I'm like, I work Compton. We 40 out by Wednesday, and we're working till Friday. So we're working for free for 2 days.
Yep.
But
Yep.
that's because we're dedicated to the job. But
Yep.
you do hit a moment in time where you're like taking a promotion to sergeant. I had a choice to go to homicide or be a sergeant. The homicide captain was like, take the sergeant.
Yeah.
And then after about a year, I'll bring you back. It won't be a problem. It'll be a lot easier to bring you back as a sergeant than a deputy. Well, then my year was up, and he was like, "Well, you going to apply?" And I said, "Nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'll just be patrol sergeant for a little more time.
Yep.
Spend time with my family. I'm only working 3 days a week, so I'll be the other 4 days I'll be with my family."
So if you're a good detective, you're working. You're
working.
Yep, you're working. All right, guys, thank you for joining us on Crime 101. Good movie, little unrealistic, particularly at the end. So Gambit and everybody who joined us for comments, thank you so much for the comments. Martine, I think we're finished. You can take it away.
Okay.
Okay.
So, see you, everybody.
How do you?
Y'all come back now, you hear? Matt Damon.